Herald editor-at-large Shane Curry will join me at the desk with his latest from his Media Insider column. Africa's Ebola outbreak has now passed 600 cases. We'll take you live to the Congo to find out what's happening on the ground. And we'll have a look at your latest outlook for the weekend weather. But first, here's Neva with the news.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
Uncertainty continues in Iran this morning. US President Donald Trump says discussions and final points have been approved by all parties. He's told Fox News Iran is in submission. Trump says Iran has no navy, air force or anti-aircraft defences, and the US is flying over the country without its knowledge. The Infrastructure Commission's warning high power prices, fuelled by declining levels of gas, are discouraging investment in energy infrastructure. Its latest report calls for planning for a larger and more electricity-dependent economy in the future. It estimates $2 to $5 billion a year will need to be spent on electricity over the next 30 years. The Commission says new generation and storage is needed to offset declining gas. It says the cost to build electricity generation in New Zealand is competitive with the rest of the world. Support from some mayors for ACT's pledge to expand rural policing. At Field Days in Hamilton, ACT has announced a promise to fund an extra 100,000 patrol hours in rural areas. It also wants stiffer penalties on armed poachers and livestock thefts, and to expand 111 texts for farmers with patchy mobile coverage. Manawatu District Mayor Michael Ford says regional officers are too often called to Palmerston North. He says criminals typically know they have about a 20-minute head start. A former Olympian turned coach and another male employee at an Auckland hockey club have been accused of misconduct involving young women. The Herald reports the Olympian resigned from North Harbour Hockey Association following an investigation into inappropriate relationships with female players. He denies the allegations. The other staff member has been charged with 3 counts of indecent assault, 2 of which allegedly involve a girl aged between 12 and 16. His case is currently before the Auckland District Court. There's no suggestion the 2 men's alleged conduct is linked. Tertiary enrolments are forecast to peak next year before gradually declining the rest of the decade. New Ministry of Education projections say full-time enrolments will rise to about 214,000 in 2027 before easing to 207,000 by 2030. The minister says it's driven by unemployment rates, with Treasury forecasting joblessness to reach a high next year before falling. The report also forecasts enrolments will remain below their 2021 peak, while postgraduate study continues to grow.
Herald Now Sport.
Football World Cup is now underway. Today's games include South Africa facing tournament co-hosts Mexico and South Korea against the Czech Republic. Black Caps opener Devon Conway has briefly returned home to New Zealand for the birth of his second child. He's expected back for the second test starting Wednesday. The South Sydney Rabbitohs have torched the defending champion Broncos 48-6 to open round 15 of the NRL. It's a 6th straight defeat for Brisbane.
Herald Now Weather.
Morena, while high pressure sits across the top of the country, across the South Island, this front is bringing some wetter and cloudier weather across the middle parts of the South Island. That weakens away as it moves northwards, and behind it, some more clear, cold air. We'll find it's not a bad looking story down through Southland. The wet weather and the cloud clearing away towards north, leaving behind some fine spells as we head through the afternoon. A cold night coming up for you though. We'll meet that cloud and wetter weather through Canterbury and Westland. It should weaken away as we head through the morning time, and the afternoon leaves more fine spells as we head in towards at the end of the day as well. A bit more cloud around that western facing coast of the North Island, but I think most of us are in for a dry day and some fine weather as we head towards the afternoon. Another cold start to the day for places like Taupo, and I think even out towards parts of Hawke's Bay, a bit of a cool start first thing. There is a cloud, but generally fine, dry and sunny on this eastern side of the North Island. There is more cloud to start the day from northern down towards Waikato. We might find an odd shower in amongst the thickest of the cloud, but for most of us, again, it's a dry day, and the afternoon brings some brighter spells.
Right, let's go straight to some breaking news this morning. US President Donald Trump has cancelled renewed strikes on Iran, indicating a deal to end the war in the Middle East could be around the corner. Yesterday on Truth Social, Trump wrote the United States will be hitting Iran very hard tonight. And as recently as a couple of hours ago, Trump was indicating the US could seize Karg Island, a key part of Iran's oil exports. But in the past hour, Trump's posted yet another update. This time he says he's cancelled bombings after discussions have been brought to the highest level of the Iranian leadership and approved. According to Trump, the time and place of the deal will be announced shortly. The markets are already reacting to this, with Brent crude oil prices dropping almost 4% to $89 a barrel. Let's go straight to our correspondent, US political commentator Dan Schnurr. Dan, thanks so much for being with us this morning. So Trump's indicating a peace deal could be around the corner. What do you make of this?
Mike, the first thing I would caution everyone in this conversation is to remember that Trump has predicted that a peace deal is imminent in the US-Iran war more than 30 times over the last 4 months. So that doesn't mean that there will not be an agreement this time. It just means that Trump, over the months of the war, has learned that one of the best ways to dial down tensions, and not coincidentally, to re-encourage the stock market, is to make this kind of announcement. If it does lead to a peace deal, it'll be fascinating to find out what concessions he made in order to do so. If not, this may be one more in a series of temporary slowdowns to be followed by another acceleration in the days ahead.
Yeah, Dan, the point you make is really critical, of course. Trump says a lot of things. Key to this is Iran's response. Have we heard anything out of Tehran confirming what Trump is saying?
We have not. And again, like every good person, I hope that this is a peace. But it's important to remember that one of the obstacles to the negotiations is that Iran's leaders are so spread out and so isolated. It normally has taken an immense amount of time to deliver messages to them and get their responses. To get such a fast response on this occasion suggests that this might be preliminary encouraging signs as opposed to something more seminal.
Yeah, but of course, you know, to what extent is this a strategy of Trump's? I mean, he's talking about massive airstrikes at one point and then dialing back the rhetoric. And as you've mentioned, there's been more than 30 occasions where he's essentially said, hey guys, we're really close. So, yeah, do we know which way we're going to go yet?
We don't. And two quick points. One, you've nailed it exactly right. First of all, Trump has learned that voicing encouraging messages like this do bring down oil prices and do encourage the stock market upward. Second thing to remember, though, is Trump knows that he has midterm elections coming up this November. And the longer the war continues, the worse that is for him and his Republican Party. He told Fox News last night that he thought Americans might not have the appetite for a long war. So while this could, in fact, be a tangible peace deal, it's just as probable that it's him attempting to reassure his voters to keep them in line heading into these midterms.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty, a bit of a wait-and-see phase. Dan Schnurr, US commentator, thank you very much for joining us this morning on the program. Well, one of the country's top paediatricians says more breathless babies will be admitted to hospital resuscitation rooms this winter, while an antibody injection for one of the leading causes of preventable childhood illness remains unapproved and unfunded. Beyfortus prevents up to 80% of RSV hospital admissions for under fives and is backed as effective by multiple international studies. Here's our final part in a series on child health to mark the 25th anniversary of Kids First Hospital in South Auckland. As winter begins, staff at Middlemore's Kids First Hospital are bracing for a surge in admissions. Recently retired paediatrician Adrian Trenholm says many children and babies will end up in here, the hospital's resuscitation room.
An example would be if a child with RSV, a little baby, has a stopping breathing episode and apnea. They might need to come in here and be resuscitated, they might need respiratory support, IV lines, all those things. But for me, over the years, just coming in here brings that, just run from home, coming in to see what's happening. Is it meningitis? Is it pneumonia? Is it septicemia? Is it RSV?
Respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, is a potentially deadly lung infection. Trenholm, who's worked as a paediatrician for 46 years before he retired in April, says there is an antibody injection called Beyfortus, which would cut child hospitalisations because of the disease. It's approved and funded in many parts of the world, just not in New Zealand yet. Both MedSafe and Pharmac say they are assessing the drug.
So for 40 years, I've watched every winter. I've been in these rooms. I've seen kiddies struggling to breathe, mums crying, upset, distraught, shouting at me, having to send them to intensive care. No treatment for RSV. You just got to support them. And then, after 40 years, this stuff is available.
But we don't have it yet.
We don't have it, and it may be too expensive. I don't know.
Are we too slow, though, do you think, as a country?
Well, I helped do the research.
Consultant paediatrician Dame Tuela Percival says the high rate of respiratory illnesses in general among children and babies in New Zealand is a blight on our country. As a paediatrician who's worked here for 25 years, what troubles you about the state of play right now in Auckland or New Zealand?
I've worked in South Auckland for a long time, and I have colleagues who come from other places, and what we see here is an incredible burden of disease, and we see children suffering that shouldn't be suffering like that. So we see kids with really bad pneumonia, chronic lung disease, children who are very, very unwell, much more than you'd see in any other place in New Zealand.
It's something that shouldn't really be that bad. These are illnesses that are driven by children who live in low resource settings. Things like rheumatic fever, really, I trained in England, I never saw a case. I trained until I'd done 2 years as a doctor. I never saw a case of acute rheumatic fever. It was a strange disease.
Half of the rheumatic fever in the country happens here in South Auckland. We're not half the country, but most of the cases present to our hospital.
In the past year, more than 1,500 children were admitted to Kids First with respiratory issues, including influenza, pneumonia, and RSV. 424 were admitted for skin infections like eczema and cellulitis. There were 90 admissions for rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease, and 14 were on the ward for whooping cough. Percival is passionate about her work, but says it's the lack of basics that continue to put children at risk and in hospital.
What I'd say is crowded, poor housing, cold, lack of access to heat can make things worse. So you're more likely to get respiratory infections, you're more likely to get repeated episodes of pneumonia, more likely to get bronchiectasis. So it definitely makes things worse.
Are things improving?
To be honest, I don't think they are particularly. So, we're still seeing, I'm not seeing a lot of kids that sleep in cars anymore, but I see kids who are living in garages, or you've got 4 kids and parents living in one room. So that's what I saw 10 years ago. I'm still seeing it now.
So do you think the issue of child health is being neglected in New Zealand?
I don't think it has the priority that it should have here.
And if you'd like to support Middlemore's Kids First Hospital, you can donate at kidsfirstbirthdayappeal.org.nz. Well, as we saw in that track, there's been great concern New Zealand's been too slow to approve the RSV antibody injection Beyfortus, or as it's commonly known, nirsinimab. Joining me now to discuss this issue is the Asthma and Respiratory Foundation New Zealand Chief Executive Letitia Harding. Letitia, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Does it disappoint you this drug still isn't available in New Zealand?
Oh, definitely. I don't know why we're taking so long to get this funded when we know that it can reduce hospitalizations by 80% for our infants. It's just too slow, and I just don't understand why we keep wanting to reinvent the wheel here in New Zealand.
So, will more babies potentially die because of RSV or associated conditions this winter because we've dropped the ball on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this has been our understanding is that this was first put to MedSafe way back in 2024. So, why is it taking so long to get this assessed? We know that kids are going to be hospitalised this winter now because we've missed that window of getting this vaccine available to them. And that's going to put a huge burden on our hospital system, but also for parents. There's numerous studies showing that for parents whose children are hospitalised with RSV, a third are taking up to a week off. Many are taking 2 weeks off. So you've got that on-flow as well of kids being in hospital, parents having to take work off. I mean, it's a huge burden.
So MedSafe and Pharmac have told me that they're essentially still assessing this drug, but this is unusual because Pharmac's own committee has said to me that it has recommended the drug be funded as, quote, a high priority. So why do we still not have it when there's international evidence backing it?
Yeah, I think this is an example of how we're getting this so wrong when it comes to assessing drugs here in New Zealand and even medical devices. When you've got studies all around the world, when you've got countries which are funding these drugs, when you've got ample evidence, why do we have to feel like we have to take so much time to assess these products? The evidence is there. We should be letting our kids get this vaccine so we can prevent these hospitalizations, prevent our kiddies getting incredibly sick, overburdening the hospital system, having parents take time off work. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, total no-brainer. So have you gone to the Health Minister, Simeon Brown, as Chief Executive of your organisation and said to him, what is going on?
We've spoken to Minister Brown and raised attention that we don't think that Pharmac is fit for purpose anymore when it comes to assessing these. I think it's way too slow and cumbersome. We need a much more efficient way when there is ample evidence available for a drug or device.
Speaking of those, sorry, Letitia, speaking of those efficiencies and being more efficient, I mean, isn't there legislation to speed up this process whereby if you have two nations who have got good evidence to back something, it needs to get essentially approved, fast-tracked within, 30 days. So if that legislation is there, why are we still facing this issue with this particular drug?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very good question. That all sounds very good on paper, but the reality is that's not what we're hearing from our specialists when it comes to these sorts of drugs. And obviously, this winter, we're now coming into June, we're going to have kids hospitalised with RSV because it hasn't been funded and assessed quickly. So what is that fast track? Well, it sounds good on paper, but in reality, are we actually implementing it?
Yeah, and the other thing Pharmac has said to me is that it has to weigh up the cost and benefit of this injection, this key antibody injection, which has been described as a breakthrough by some, compared to other current medicines for RSV. Why is it that this drug in particular should supersede or trump all those other medications that might be out there?
Yeah, well, I think for this one in particular, it's one injection that protects our kiddies as opposed to what is currently available, which is a monthly dose. That is a barrier in itself. It's very hard for parents to take the time off work, to take their children in to get monthly injections. So, you've got to look at the barriers. Are we really breaking down barriers for people to easily access these drugs that can prevent such severe illnesses? And this is something that's been going on for quite some time now. So as you said, I don't know why this hasn't been fast-tracked. It's a no-brainer. We just wish that MedSafe Pharmac would get on, fund it, and it's disappointing that it hasn't happened yet.
We know in Australia, Letitia, that this drug has been approved and funded for over 2 years now, and yet we're still waiting here in New Zealand. And you saw in that story Adrian Trenholm, a paediatrician who's been working here for 46 years. Do you get feedback from clinicians about their frustration each winter because of all these hospitalisations of babies and young children?
Absolutely. So Dr. Adrian Trenholm was on our scientific advisory board. We have a strong respiratory advisory board. And we do hear this every winter. We've heard it from the Royal New Zealand College of GPs. We've heard it from the Paediatric Society. This has been raised time and time again. And if you've got experts saying that this needs to be funded, they're the ones at the front line seeing these kiddies come in, get incredibly sick, possibly die with these respiratory illnesses. Why aren't we listening to them?
Just finally, Pharmac, of course, it's a bit hamstrung because it has a certain budget and it has a lot of competing priorities. So how do we negotiate that issue?
Yeah, that is, it is challenging. They do have a set budget, but I think that when we go back to a particular drug or device that's got ample evidence that saves lives, then we need to make sure that we're prioritising that. We shouldn't be reinventing the wheel. We should be looking at overseas international data. If it's in guidelines, if it's recommended, like this is recommended by international guidelines, then we should be going ahead and saying, you know what, we don't need to be doing that sort of assessment here in New Zealand. Let's go ahead and let's fund this, and let's fund it now.
Letitia Harding from the Asthma and Respiratory Foundation of New Zealand. She's the Chief Executive. Thank you very much for joining us this morning on Ryan Bridge today. We'll be back shortly. Time for a break.
Hey team, it's often said respect is given, trust is built, and loyalty is earned. So a huge thank you, New Zealand, for once again voting GJ Gardner Homes as New Zealand's most trusted home builder. Now's a great time to build, and GJs are your best choice for certainty, peace of mind, and unmatched performance. So if you're thinking of building, come and talk to the team more New Zealanders trust to build their home year after year than any other builder.
In 1985, my grandfather set out to make the world a better tea. That's why we grow our own, unlike other tea companies, then pick the best leaves by hand, not machine, and pack it right here in Sri Lanka. But it's not just the taste that makes our tea better. 15% of our profit goes to humanity and to the elephants. As my grandfather said,
do try it.
Hunger in Kiwi classrooms is rising. Food support from KidsCan is urgently needed. Please give $20 for the 20% of kids going hungry. Donate now at 20for20.org.nz.
Why not target law-abiding living in fear in the country?
So we lower the cost of living by growing the economy.
Jobs, health, homes, cost of living.
Critically endangered. That's why this breeding season is so important.
We're going to fix our borders, we're going to fix everything about our country.
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
We all have a routine to help us get through the week. But that doesn't mean it has to feel so routine. Because with My Food Bag, you can come home knowing you've always got a yum meal to dish up. With new recipes to try and plenty of favourites that are simple, healthy and always delicious. It's a dinner routine that isn't stuck on repeat. My Food Bag. Dinner done better.
Make way for the designated driver.
So it was pitch black. Middle of the night.
Where are we going?
We saw this tree. It was the tallest tree ever. And then we walked and walked. Then we saw a cow. Well, Mom did.
That's quite an adventure, buddy.
Yeah, it kind of was. What do you want to do now?
Welcome back to Ryan Bridge today. Let's get straight into our political panel. We've got National's Paul Goldsmith and Labour's Kamala Belich. Hey guys, thank you very much for joining us today. Right, I want to get straight into my story this morning. One of the country's leading paediatricians has told me that more babies will suffer and die this winter because an RSV drug, Beyfortus, remains unapproved. Paul, why are we so slow and ineffective at getting stuff done like this when we know from international evidence that it works?
Yes, well, we have a process through MedSafe, which is an independent entity which checks the validity of drugs. Yes, we've had a ridiculous situation where it's been shown to be safe in the US and the UK, and then we have this separate process and go and check for ourselves. Now, we've obviously thought that doesn't make sense. We've passed legislation to change that, which will be coming into effect in the next couple of months. Precisely to deal with these sorts of situations. What unique understanding does New Zealand have when it comes to working out whether a drug is safe or not? And so that is actually changing. This is a good example of why it needs to.
So, just to be clear, in 1 month, drugs like this, within 30 days, because they have supporting evidence overseas, will get fast-tracked approval?
Yes. The precise time when it starts, whether it's a month or 2 months, I'm not quite clear, but it's coming. The legislation's been passed and will be taking effect soon to deal with these sorts of situations.
Okay, and Kamala, why is it that we have this situation? I mean, this is not a new issue. We've got MedSafe, we've got Pharmac, both doing their assessments, and both reassessing drugs that have already been assessed overseas by very competent people. Why is it taking so long? Why are we so slow in this country?
Well, I think I just want to acknowledge a lot of families that are going through this issue with RSV. It can be very serious. I know, like many other parents, I've been in Starship Hospital when it's been winter flu season, and you just feel like you would do anything to stop these children from going through what they're going through. So it is a really serious issue. The situation with Pharmac, as Paul said, there are some changes, I understand, coming in that area. But one of the things that our health spokesperson, Dr. Aisha Verrill, has said before is that sometimes when we're looking at these types of, I know this isn't technically a vaccine, but it's kind of a preventative treatment that, maybe that's something we can look at with Pharmac to make sure that when they are assessing this, it's being the overall health effects and the impact on the country are being taken into account.
Okay, so from Labour's perspective, the other overriding issue here is that these paediatricians at Kids First Hospital have told me, they're top paediatricians, they say that the situation for children has just not improved in recent years and that kids are still living in mouldy, damp homes. Are we failing kids in New Zealand at the moment, and if so, why?
I think there's definitely more that we can do, and we have to, as you say, recognise the fact that children's health doesn't exist in isolation from the homes that they live in or the communities that they're a part of. And that's why, when we were in government, we brought in the Healthy Home Standard to increase the health of the homes that people are in a mandatory way.
Yes, but you've got the Healthy Home, and you've got the Healthy Home Standard, but unfortunately, kids are still living in garages, which are clearly not healthy homes. So
it's a question of affordability. Affordability is a big part of it, and over the previous administration, they went to war on landlords, and rents went up very significantly over 6 years. The good news is that that big increase in rents has dropped away over the last few years. And that helps, and so we've got a very big focus on reducing the cost of overall housing and continue to invest significantly in health generally. The question around this drug, of course, every specialist will be advocating for their particular drug, and that's why we have an independent Pharmac decide which one's going to be funded when, and so the main lever that the government has is how much resource to be put into Pharmac for funding drugs, and in our government we've continued to increase Pharmac funding, and that's important.
Okay, Paul. But just on this issue of child health, and it's not just RSV; it's other conditions that are just not prevalent in other parts of the world. So rheumatic fever, repeated cases of pneumonia.
Yes.
So why we've got this healthy home legislation? Why is it that we don't actually have checks on landlords? Because essentially, if I'm a landlord, I can say my place is healthy when it's not, and providing the tenant doesn't complain, it's all good.
Yes. Well,
does that need to be tightened up? Do you need to actually get in there and make the healthy home standards and enforce them?
Well, look, I'm sure there are situations where imperfection continues, and so the question is whether how heavily you regulate or how much you encourage to have a focus on trying to reduce the overall cost of housing, and that's what we're doing. And so that it's much more fundamental and long-reaching. It's like if you reform the RMA, you reduce the cost of building new houses. It all flows through to the affordability of housing, which is what we're trying to achieve.
Okay, Kamala, just on to another topic here. We've got Rakesh Naidu, two former race relations commissioners have come out in support. Have police overreacted, the Commissioner and Mark Mitchell?
Just to your last question, of course, people living in garages is not acceptable and we do need to do more. But on this issue, Rakesh Naidu has a very long period of service within New Zealand Police. He's very highly respected. I'm not surprised that people who've previously worked with him in the past have come out to say exactly that. And
yes, so is the Commissioner Commissioner overreacting?
I think that what I would like to see the Commissioner doing is focus on this as an employment matter. It is an employment matter. He's an employee of the Commissioner. Usually I come from an employment background. Before I became an MP, I worked as a lawyer in that area. What you would usually see is if there's anything that needs to be addressed, that's done confidentially through an internal process. So it is unusual to see these public comments, but certainly in Labour we're extremely proud of the work that Rakesh has done over the decades that he's been in the police force. We think he has a really bright future ahead of him, and we've seen absolutely zero evidence that he has done anything wrong. And so anything that it kind of indicates or implies that he has is really unfair.
Is it a bit weird, Paul, that he's being investigated?
Look, the Police Commissioner is obviously independent. He does what he thinks is appropriate. I'm not going to get involved in that. I don't think he should be higher on the list than Camilla, who's been doing a great job in Parliament, but that's for the Labour Party to figure out where they're putting up their list. And they've obviously got a real problem on law and order. We're still 6 months out from the election. We haven't seen a single policy from Labour on law and order, not a single one. So,
do you want to respond? Would you like to respond to that?
What they're going to do in justice?
Would you like to respond to
that,
Camilla?
I haven't seen actually the National Party's law and order policy either.
We're cranking them out every day.
So I would like to know what that is. But certainly we will have policies in relation to justice policy, and Paul will be very excited to see them because I think he'll be quite impressed. I'm sure there'll be some ideas in there that he's going to.
We'll wait. The week before the election, we might hear something.
I'm sure we'll hear some soon. Hey guys, thank you very much for joining us in the studio this morning. That's National's Paul Goldsmith and Labour's Kamala Balic. Right, we've got a short break and we'll be back in a moment.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Uncertainty continues in Iran this morning. US President Donald Trump says discussions and final points have been approved by all parties. He's told Fox News Iran is in submission. Trump says Iran has no navy, air force or anti-aircraft defences, and the US is flying over the country without its knowledge. The Infrastructure Commission's warning high power prices fuelled by declining levels of gas are discouraging investment in energy infrastructure. Its latest report calls for planning for a larger and more electricity-dependent economy in the future. It estimates $2 to $5 billion a year will need to be spent on electricity over the next 30 years. The Commission says new generation and storage is needed to offset declining gas. It says the cost to build electricity generation in New Zealand is competitive with the rest of the world. Support from some mayors for ACT's pledge to expand rural policing. At Field Days in Hamilton, ACT has announced a promise to fund an extra 100,000 patrol hours in rural areas. It also wants stiffer penalties on armed poachers and livestock thefts, and to expand 111 texts for farmers with patchy mobile coverage. Manawatu District Mayor Michael Ford says regional officers are too often called to Palmerston North. He says criminals typically know they have about a 20-minute head start. A former Olympian turned coach and another male employee at an Auckland hockey club have been accused of misconduct involving young women. The Herald reports the Olympian resigned from North Harbour Hockey Association following an investigation into inappropriate relationships with female players. He denies the allegations. The other staff member has been charged with 3 counts of indecent assault, 2 of which allegedly involve a girl aged between 12 and 16. His case is currently before the Auckland District Court. There's no suggestion the 2 men's alleged conduct is linked. Tertiary enrolments are forecast to peak next year before gradually declining the rest of the decade. New Ministry of Education projections say full-time enrolments will rise to about 214,000 in 2027 before easing to 207,000 by 2030. The minister says it's driven by unemployment rates, with Treasury forecasting joblessness to reach a high next year before falling. The report also forecasts enrolments will remain below their 2021 peak, while postgraduate study continues to grow.
Herald Now Sport.
The Football World Cup is now underway. Today's games include South Africa facing tournament co-hosts Mexico and South Korea against the Czech Republic. Black Caps opener Devon Conway has briefly returned home to New Zealand for the birth of his second child. He's expected back for the second test starting Wednesday. The South Sydney Rabbitohs have torched the defending champion Broncos 48-6 to open round 15 of the NRL. It's a 6th straight defeat for Brisbane.
Herald Now weather.
Morena, while high pressure sits across the top of the country. Across the South Island, this front is bringing some wetter and cloudier weather across the middle parts of the South Island. That weakens away as it moves northwards, and behind it, some more clear, cold air. We'll find it's not a bad looking story down through Southland. The wet weather and the cloud clearing away towards north, even behind some fine spells as we head through the afternoon. A cold night coming up for you though. We'll meet that cloud and wetter weather through Canterbury and Westland. It should weaken away as we head through the morning time, and the afternoon leaves more fine spells as we head in towards at the end of the day as well. A bit more cloud around that western facing coast of the North Island, but I think most of us are in for a dry day and some fine weather as we head towards the afternoon. Another cold start to the day for places like Taupo, and I think even out towards parts of Hawke's Bay, a bit of a cool start first thing. There is a cloud, but generally fine, dry and sunny on this eastern side of the North Island. There is more cloud to start the day from Northland down towards Waikato. We might find an odd shower in amongst the thickest of the cloud, but for most of us, again, it's a dry day, and the afternoon brings some brighter spells.
Good morning, I'm Michael Morra. It is 25 minutes to 8. It is time to talk business thanks to our partners at Forsyth Bar. Oil prices have been riding a bit of a roller coaster this morning along with the rest of us, following news from the White House and the Gulf. Host of Herald Now Business, Garth Bray, is across it as usual for us. Thanks for being here, Garth. So the situation with the war seems pretty fluid. What's that doing to the market?
Yeah, I mean, it's pushing it. Oil prices have just been dropping quite markedly. I'm talking in the last few minutes as well as across the last hour. Donald Trump, I think, is on air at the moment talking to the White House about a deal that he hopes will be signed to extend the ceasefire and broaden negotiations probably in the next couple of days. I mean, we've been hearing that same statement for I don't know how many days, but it really has been bouncing around in the last hour or so, as you've probably reported. You know, the talks of strikes and then they were off. That's all oil, Brent crude futures for the front month trading between about $95 a barrel and 89. When I looked just most recently, I think it's more like about 88 at the moment, and they are falling. I guess markets are very much leaning on the confidence at the moment, and an optimism, rather than wanting to believe that this is going to carry on.
But to what extent? We had our correspondent on this morning talking about how Trump, has done this in the past to effectively manipulate prices and or make it look good politically. Sure. How problematic is that for the markets?
Well, I guess people, when you're looking at the impact, they're just buying the rumour, I suppose, and trading on that at this point. So that's the kind of direction of travel at the moment. Whether that changes in the next hour or so, but we've had, I think, an official denial from FARS, the Iranian news agency, that anything is concluded yet. But
as we often hear, right? Iran saying nothing's happening.
Yeah, right. But he's out in front of the camera saying, no, it's all sorted. So it's been a real whipsaw, but the numbers are bouncing around to respond.
So also bouncing around, I mean, oil's pushing up the interest rates too. So what's the link there?
So this is the ECB, European Central Bank, overnight for the first time in 3 years after sort of falling or flat rates. It's lifted its policy rate to 2.25%. That's like our OCR. And it's basically Christine Lagarde saying, look, it's the growth projections and inflation for this year based on the supply shock from oil support that. Really, they're saying that inflation is going to be in a sort of a 3% range for the rest of the year, coming back to 2.3 for the Eurozone next year. Basically, prices being pushed higher by the higher energy costs that they're facing in Europe. But they are saying that that's based on one set of projections. If you were to see oil average more like 165 US a barrel, so they've got some scary projections in there, frankly, then inflation would hit more like 4%, 5% next year. And that all sort of tells a story about, well, if we see these oil prices go higher, then the bank might be forced into a tightening cycle rather than perhaps just squeezing inflation off with an interest rate lift just now.
Okay, and US stocks are heading to the closing bell, so how are they looking at the moment?
Pretty rosy, I've got to say. We might even have some numbers in there if we can take you to those. I mean, we've got oil, I think, about $88 a barrel at the moment. That's the Brent crude front month of July, and looking through the curve, it was more like down to about 80 a year out from now, and certainly under 90s. So that just sort of gives you a picture of where they're heading. Dow, S&P 500 and NASDAQ all up. I think most or about half of that gains happened literally in the last hour or so as this kind of news. Again, like I say, markets tending to ignore the bad news and jumping hard on the good news, which shows there's a lot of optimism around there. These are also probably the last time that these indexes will reflect a market without SpaceX in them. SpaceX is going to float sort of tomorrow morning our time, about 4 times oversubscribed, so 4 times as many people wanting shares as they are putting on the market. For an IPO, a smaller one, that wouldn't be huge, but for one of this size, after sort of $75 billion US dollars, that's pretty substantial. And I mean, you can see with our currency there, we're edging back up just a wee bit there. We had been drifting down against the dollar, but it looks like maybe some of the interest rate talk and some of this talk from the White House is shifting things around a wee bit too.
Absolutely, Garth. Thanks very much for your analysis. As usual, it is a very volatile situation out there.
Keep an eye on it, yeah.
Yeah, we will. That is, of course, Herald Now business host Garth Bray, and we talk business every day with our partners, Forsyth Barr. Well, we are T-minus 18 hours until SpaceX launches on the NASDAQ. Shares will be up for grabs at 135 USD a piece as they look to raise $75 billion in what is expected to be the largest IPO in history. Business of Tech podcast host Peter Griffin joins me now from Wellington. Peter, good to have you on the show this morning. So what's likely to happen when SpaceX starts trading publicly?
Well, Michael, as Garth said, when it comes to Iran, investors are buying the rumor. Really, with SpaceX, investors are buying the dream. This is heavily oversubscribed, up to $250 billion of money, wanting to buy $75 billion worth of SpaceX shares, which is the biggest listing in history. So the price will go up. It's a market. There's a lot of demand there. So it may go up to $170, $180, $200 today, but it's going to be very volatile over the coming months because of the way that this listing has been engineered. There's a relatively large float for public investors, for retail investors, as they call them. So all the institutions have got their allocations, and now the people who are Spaceboy fans, and there are millions of them around the world, they are really keen to get on. So they will push the price up, but over the coming months, it's going to be a bit of a wild ride as people who hold shares already, insiders who backed the company when it was private, they are looking for their big exit. So they will be shedding their shares, and that, of course, will then push the price down.
Yeah, of course. So what projects might the money go towards?
Well, yeah, look, the key thing that's looming is a major loan that needs to be repaid, $20 billion. That's a bridging loan that matures next year. And it's written into the deal for that loan that within 6 months of an IPO, they have to pay that down. So that's a big chunk of it, paying down debt. And then, of course, you've got the Starship project. They've already spent $15 billion designing and launching this massive rocket, but it's nowhere near ready for prime time, so they have a lot more money to put into that. Then the artificial intelligence side of the business is very cash hungry as well, so they'll be putting a lot of money in there. So I think that money will be scooped up very quickly inside the company, and Musk has said that they will need to go out to the market again for more capital, and that will lead to more dilution of the shareholders who do get into SpaceX in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, so how could being a public company impact the way SpaceX operates? I mean, will it become less ambitious?
Well, it's definitely going to be a lot more scrutiny, and as we've seen with the likes of Rocket Lab, Sir Peter Beck has said that was one of the best things that they did was list quite early in their history, because it gave them that discipline of reporting every quarter, full transparency into their books. So that could have a positive impact. But look, the way that Elon Musk has designed this deal, he has the majority of voting shares in the company. He's learnt from Mark Zuckerberg, who when Facebook listed, designed it in a way that basically no one could tell him what to do. He controls the company. Elon Musk has done the same thing. He controls 42% of the shares and the majority of the voting shares. So he will be pushing his weight around a bit, and it will be interesting to see how investors, what tolerance they have for that as the debt and the spending racks up without profits.
Hey, thank you very much for your analysis this morning. That is Business of Tech podcast host Peter Griffin. It is 7:45, time for a quick break, and we'll be back with your weekend weather.
So it was pitch black, middle of the night. Where are we going? We saw this tree. It was the tallest tree ever. And then we walked and walked. Then we saw a cow. Well, Mom did.
That's quite an adventure, buddy.
Yeah, it kind of was. What do you want to do now?
One Roof Property. Love where you live.
Sleeping rough is a reality for far too many Kiwis this winter. We're raising money through the annual Big Sleep Out to help change that. Donations support Merge Cafe, a welcoming space on K Road serving warm, nourishing kai, and real support to help people find safety, connection, and a place to call home. Donate today to the Big Sleep Out because every donation counts.
In 1985, my grandfather set out to make the world a better tea. That's why we grow our own, unlike other tea companies, then pick the best leaves by hand, not machine, and pack it right here in Sri Lanka. But it's not just the taste that makes our tea better. 15% of our profit goes to humanity and to the elephants. As my grandfather said,
do try it.
Guys, make way for the designated driver.
Hey there team, thank you for once again voting GJ Gardner Homes as New Zealand's most trusted home builder. Now's a great time to build, and GJs are your best choice for certainty, peace of mind, and unmatched performance.
Welcome back to Ryan Bridge today. I'm Michael Morrow. Well, it is well and truly winter with temperatures dropping to their coldest of the year so far. Met Service meteorologist John Law is here to tell us about how the weekend is shaping up at your place. So John, how cold has it been and what's it like this morning?
Morena, Michael. Yeah, real cold yesterday morning, particularly temperatures down below freezing for places like Waikato. Even parts of Auckland got down to just above freezing. So a cold story for many of us, the coldest it's been for the year so far. But today is a different story, a much milder start. So temperatures outside places like Ardmore and Auckland, about 9-10 degrees Celsius, very different from those 1s and 2s we saw yesterday. Still some cold spots, though, out towards the east, and still pretty chilly first thing in places like Christchurch as well, freezing there. But I think we have got more cold nights coming up.
So slightly milder. What about down at field days? Is it going to turn into a sort of a mud bath down there, or is it set to pan out okay for them at Mystery Creek?
I think actually Mystery Creek is one of the best places to be. It's a bit of a cloudy start this morning for them, but really once that cloud starts to break up, we're in for a pretty decent day. That cloud should clear. You can see it's around those more western parts, so bare plenty, eastern side looking fantastic for the north side. But yeah, Mystery Creek, a touch more cloud this morning, clears off quite nicely. A cooler start tomorrow, but again, another decent day there. And then down the south side, the wet weather for the likes of Christchurch, but compared to the dry weather we've seen throughout May, it's actually nice to get a little bit of rainfall through there, and it dries up quite nicely too.
Yeah, so will the South Island keep this sort of dry spell going, if you like?
Yeah, I think we are going to find some wetter weather on its way as we head in towards the weekend for them. But for today, just a few spots of rain for the likes of Christchurch, more so on that western coast. But as we head in towards the weekend, just the likes of the western side of the South Island catching that rainfall on Saturday, not so much on the North Island. It's Sunday when we start to see our next sort of wet weather pushing through, some heavier spells of rain on that western coast and perhaps some stronger winds out east. But I think the western side of the South Island is going to find some wetter weather for Sunday.
Yeah, so not too bad. So good news for the Warriors game on Saturday?
Yeah, I think for the likes of Auckland this weekend, looks to be staying dry. The North Island looks good. So for Warriors on Saturday, just a touch more cloud later on. But yeah, it should be a decent game.
Hey, John, the BBC's reporting the El Nino has already started. What does this mean for New Zealand? How extreme could things get for the world and for us?
Well, that's a really good question. So what that means is that those central temperatures in the Pacific have now exceeded that threshold. So we're looking at about half a degree above average. So we've just started to see cross that threshold. That's what that means when that El Nino has started. For us in New Zealand, it generally tends to be the return of more southwesterly winds across the country. So you can imagine more wetter weather on those western coasts of the South Island and perhaps down towards the likes of South and the Stewart Island and drier out east. But it's worth saying that no two El Ninos are the same. So there's still plenty of time to check those forecasts, but it does look like it is going to build into a fairly significant feature as we head through the winter time and into the summer.
Yeah, so John, so what exactly does that do, John, if you're a keen skier or snowboarder in terms of the outlook for a good ski season if you've got this El Nino event starting early? I mean, is it going to be good or is it going to be average?
That's a great question too. So I think we are going to find more southerly, so cooler temperatures, but it tends to mean that a lot of the wetter weather stays on the other side of the hill. So perhaps those ski fields closest towards the Southern Alps will get the better weather and the better amounts of snowfall through there. But with some clearer skies and some colder temperatures out towards the east, it's not to say we still won't see some snow there, but I think some of the better skiing conditions perhaps closer towards the Southern Alps as we head through this winter.
Okay, thanks as always for your analysis this morning, John. That is John Law, Met Service meteorologist. Well, returning to our developing news out of Iran, Donald Trump this morning has said the deal to bring an end to the war could be signed as early as this weekend.
That the Strait will officially open as soon as we sign, which could be soon, very soon, maybe over the weekend, in Europe. I won't be able to be there, but JD will be there, Vice President, and some of the people.
And of course, we'll keep you updated on this developing story throughout the show. It is 5 to 8. It's time for a quick break, and we're back soon with our sport panel.
It only costs a few dollars, but it all adds up.
What do you mean?
Well, every little donation we make contributes to something bigger.
How bigger? Really bigger. Well,
together we make the chopper. Donate now to the Westpac Chopper Appeal.
Do you want a warm, healthy home? Insulate your walls with Insulmax. The easy, cost-effective way to insulate your walls, usually in just one day. Wall insulation without renovation for older Kiwi homes. Fully certified for New Zealand conditions. Join the thousands of Kiwis enjoying a warm, dry, energy-efficient home with Insulmax retrofit wall insulation. Visit nzherald.co.nz to book your free home assessment.
For 150 years, public trust has helped generations of New Zealanders with their wills. Make yours today and ensure the things that matter go to the people that matter.
With the goodness of grains, Molenbeek. Keep me going longer!
I want my Molenbeek!
Winning New World Emerge has brought me into the Foodstuffs family.
Winning Emerge has really transformed our business.
New World Emerge is a competition for small and emerging suppliers to give them an opportunity to have their products ranged in New World stores across the country.
Such huge amounts of support from New World. So we're in a distribution centre, we now have a 3PL, third-party logistics.
Whenever I need access to something, all I've got to do is reach out and ask.
Hey there team, thank you for once again voting GJ Gardner Homes as New Zealand's most trusted home builder. Now's a great time to build, and GJs are your best choice for certainty, peace of mind and unmatched performance.
We just switched to 2 Degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference. But 2 Degrees has free Aussie business roaming. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
Stop paying the waiting tax. The money you could miss out on by delaying the start of your investment journey. Up your tempo with Tempo, the guided investment app that helps you get started. Don't delay because you don't think you have enough time, money, or know-how. All you need is a goal, and our guidance will help with the rest. You can do it. We can help. Here's how. Download Tempo now.
Welcome back, I'm Michael Morrow. It's time for our weekly sports panel, and all eyes are on the USA, Canada and Mexico because the FIFA World Cup is underway. Cam McMillan, Herald Sport Deputy Editor, Nathan Lim, Herald Sport journalist. Guys, kia ora, thank you for being here. Opening game between Mexico and South Africa is underway. Cam, how's that progressing?
Yeah, it all started Mexico with an early goal in the 6th minute to Julian Quintanes or something. I think that's his name. He's a Colombian-born player playing for Mexico. There's a guy who was playing for the Colombian junior teams a couple of years ago. I think he got enticed by the promise of a home World Cup in Mexico to switch allegiances, and it's paid dividends because he scored the opening goal. And I think by the looks of it, South Africa barely had a shot on goal in the first half, so I think it'll be as expected. You expect Mexico to open with a win, and it all kicks off. There's another game later on today, South Korea versus Czech Republic. So yeah, it's plenty of games, plenty of teams, plenty.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Now New Zealand plays Iran coming up, Nathan. So how are we going to be looking for that match?
That game is absolutely crucial for the All Whites' chances of making it out of the group. Never done it before, never made it out of a group of a World Cup.
What are our chances?
They're low, but this is a very good New Zealand outfit compared to our history. They've got a very good defensive line. It is absolutely crucial that they come out of this Iranian game with points, whether that is a draw, preferably a win, but they've got some pretty tough opponents coming up. So if they can come out of this game with points, there is a decent chance that they can make it out of the group.
Cam, we know that the Iranian regime, the US have blocked a whole lot of the, Iranian management from coming over. I mean, what will the headspace be like for those Iranian players who are kind of going over there without their support crew and then have to fly back?
Yeah, certainly disruption. They're being based in Mexico at the moment, so they're going to fly, I think, on game day up to Los Angeles. So the All Whites are based in San Diego, so they're just going to take a bus up. It's pretty much easier for them. But yeah, just pretty hard to judge how they're going to play, whether they're going to be good as a tight unit after what's going on back home, or whether it's just going to get in their heads and being on that world stage with all the focus on their own country back home as well, especially, you just saw in the headlines with Trump talking about whether this deal will be brokered this weekend.
Oh, I know, it's
whether
like
it's kind of been set up to
Yeah.
happen just before the World Cup, so all the focus is on Trump already at this time of year. But yeah, as Nathan said, with the expanded teams in this World Cup, there's a chance for third place teams, 8 of the 12 third place teams will advance to the next round. So the All Whites, one win and they pretty much guaranteed into that knockout round for the first time. So
yeah, okay. It is huge. I mean, let's go to the NBA Finals, and the Knicks came back from 29 points down to pip the Spurs. How did the Spurs get it so wrong?
Utter insanity, eh? The Spurs came out so hot and were shooting from three like you wouldn't believe. They scored 76 points in the first half. And then the second half came
76
along,
points.
76, and they led by as many as 29. The second half rolled on, and New York just slowly crawled this lead back. And in the fourth quarter, the Spurs, very young team, and they choked under pressure. They made some bizarre decisions in the sort of dying seconds, and New York snatched it, and Madison Square Garden went absolutely nuts. My entire Instagram feed is New York fans going berserk, destroying the city. I don't know what they're up to, but the fans are just going absolutely crazy. So they're 1 win away from the title, and we head back to Texas.
Cam, did you watch that match?
Oh,
was
yeah,
one of the
just
better
brilliant.
games. Was it one of the better games of basketball?
Yeah, I was doing school pickup at the time, and I saw the Knicks were down by 20 odd, and then it was slowly crawling back. Yeah, I have been over the playoff series, and it timed well to watch the last 5 minutes, and amazing. And it just shows the Knicks have that experience. It's experience versus youth, where this young Spurs team, they just buckled under pressure.
Okay, Super Rugby finals, Chiefs versus Crusaders at Hamilton.
Yeah, that's going to be the game of the round. These two teams have met so many times now in the semi-final and final stage, and they offer great clashes. The other game, Hurricanes Blues. Well, the Blues have lost their way into the semi-finals. I don't think any sports team has ever done that before, to lose 4 games and still be in the semi-finals. And they've shipped something like 200 points in their last 4 games. So. I think that this is going to be the big game tonight. I'm picking the Chiefs, I think.
I'm going to back the Crusaders. I'm actually going to back the Crusaders to win it from here.
I'm backing the Crusaders
too. I have this
too.
feeling at this point in the season, this is when they turn it on. Hurricanes Blues on Saturday night. The Hurricanes are very heavy favourites. The Blues have conceded, almost 200 points in their last 4 games. The thing that I'm sort of thinking about is every time I turn on the TV to watch the Hurricanes, is the team plays brilliantly. There's no one there watching them. The Hurricanes fans don't show up. They didn't show up for the last final game. Are they going to show up for the semi-final when their team's on the verge of a title? If they don't show up for these final games, I reckon we need to move the Hurricanes somewhere else. Take them to Hawke's Bay.
Yeah, take them to Taranaki.
Well, certainly people will be showing up this weekend to the Warriors versus Sharks. What are they on the table, and how are they going to perform against, after losing against Penrith?
Yeah, so the Warriors sit second, the Sharks are 7th. They've had sort of a mixed start to the season, but they've won their last 3 on the trot. The big thing for the Warriors is that they're missing a couple of players through Origin and also through injury, so they've had to go quite deep into their reserves. A couple of big name sort of New South Wales Cup players coming up into the side, Kalis Fatialofa and Makai Tafua. Will be really interesting to see how they go in potential first grade debuts. So it'll be a big challenge, but the Warriors will be happy to be back at Mount Smart for the first time in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll finish on the F1 in Spain, Cam. Barcelona Grand Prix is on Monday.
Yeah, Monday morning, 1 a.m, another early start for Kiwis. And Liam Lawson, he's been doing great result in Monaco over the weekend. This is in Barcelona, which has previously been the Spanish Grand Prix. There'll be a Spanish Grand Prix later in the year in Madrid. So they know the circuit, they're used to it. I think he finished 11th last year, so obviously he'll be keen to get back in the points, and you would expect him to in the form that he's in.
A lot of sport going on. So do you guys just, get to the weekend and basically just have the TV or have multiple TVs on to watch all the sport?
That's work.
How do you
working hard.
Oh, I know you work hard. How do you keep across it all?
You watch a lot of highlights and you jump from thing to thing and pick out the key points.
Yeah. I bet. Hey, have a great weekend, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. As always, that is Cam McMillan, Herald Sport Deputy Editor, and Nathan Lim, Herald Sports Journalist. Well, it is 2 minutes past 8. Good morning and welcome to Ryan Bridge Today. I'm Michael Morra. It's Friday the 12th of June. On the show this hour, Africa's Ebola outbreak has now passed 600 cases. We'll take you live to the Congo to find out what's happening on the ground. That's next. A major big budget Hollywood film due to be produced in New Zealand has lost its blockbuster star Jason Momoa. Herald editor-at-large Shane Curry joins me with the latest from his Media Insider column. And Warriors coach Andrew Webster has called for action against AI-generated misinformation on social media after a fake Facebook post falsely claimed his wife was dead. We'll take a look at that on the panel. It is 5 minutes past 8. Let's go to Neva with the news headlines.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Uncertainty continues in Iran this morning. US President Donald Trump says discussions and final points have been approved by all parties. He's told Fox News Iran is in submission. Trump says Iran has no navy, air force or anti-aircraft defences, and the US is flying over the country without its knowledge. The Infrastructure Commission's warning high power prices fuelled by declining levels of gas are discouraging investment in energy infrastructure. Its latest report calls for planning for a larger and more electricity-dependent economy in the future. It estimates $2 to $5 billion a year will need to be spent on electricity over the next 30 years. The Commission says new generation and storage is needed to offset declining gas. It says the cost to build electricity generation in New Zealand is competitive with the rest of the world. Support from some mayors for ACT's pledge to expand rural policing. At Field Days in Hamilton, ACT has announced a promise to fund an extra 100,000 patrol hours in rural areas. It also wants stiffer penalties on armed poachers and livestock thefts, and to expand 111 texts for farmers with patchy mobile coverage. Manawatu District Mayor Michael Ford says regional officers are too often called to Palmerston North. He says criminals typically know they have about a 20-minute head start. A former Olympian turned coach and another male employee at an Auckland hockey club have been accused of misconduct involving young women. The Herald reports the Olympian resigned from North Harbour Hockey Association following an investigation into inappropriate relationships with female players. He denies the allegations. The other staff member has been charged with 3 counts of indecent assault, 2 of which allegedly involve a girl aged between 12 and 16. His case is currently before the Auckland District Court. There's no suggestion the 2 men's alleged conduct is linked. Tertiary enrolments are forecast to peak next year before gradually declining the rest of the decade. New Ministry of Education projections say full-time enrolments will rise to about 214,000 in 2027 before easing to 207,000 by 2030. The minister says it's driven by unemployment rates, with Treasury forecasting joblessness to reach a high next year before falling. The report also forecasts enrolments will remain below their 2021 peak, while postgraduate study continues to grow.
Herald Now Sport.
The Football World Cup is now underway. Today's games include South Africa facing tournament co-hosts Mexico and South Korea against the Czech Republic. Black Caps opener Devon Conway has briefly returned home to New Zealand for the birth of his second child. He's expected back for the second test starting Wednesday. The South Sydney Rabbitohs have torched the defending champion Broncos 48-6 to open round 15 of the NRL. It's a 6th straight defeat for Brisbane.
So we're into another winter, and once again children and babies are going to be admitted to hospital suffering from severe and avoidable respiratory illnesses. These are conditions like RSV and rheumatic fever, both of which are highly unusual in other parts of the developed world. The suffering those kids and their parents will endure partly is due to poor housing, mouldy, damp, substandard accommodation. We've got the healthy homes rules, but let's be honest, that doesn't cut it. Landlords are responsible for ensuring their homes meet certain standards. Those who don't may face fines. The key word in that sentence is that they may face fines. The Ministry of Housing points to significant improvements since the rules were brought in. For example, homes that reported having no problems with dampness or mould has increased from 43% to 55%. That, in my view, is still pretty low. And in reality, if I'm a landlord and want to falsify information and claim a rental is up to scratch when it's not, I can. There's no mandatory in-person inspection to see if the rental meets those standards before a tenant moves in, and in many cases, tenants will be too worried to complain. This week, I've reported on a family living in a cold converted garage in South Auckland. There is no way on earth that place meets healthy home standards. That story was part of a series on child health to help raise money for the Middlemore Foundation to support the Children's Hospital Kids First in South Auckland. Top paediatricians at that hospital told me New Zealand is not prioritising children and believe we need to divert money away from older people and invest it in children. In their words, the children are the future. So is it time to delay or cancel superannuation for the well-off so we can funnel cash into improving outcomes for kids? Some of the things I've witnessed while filming this series makes me ashamed to be a Kiwi. And it feels like we need bold action to reverse the situation, relieve the burden on parents, their children, and the hospital specialists treating them.
Herald Now weather.
Morena, while high pressure sits across the top of the country, across the South Island, this up front is bringing some wetter and cloudier weather across the middle parts of the South Island. That weakens away as it moves northwards, and behind it, some more clear, cold air. We'll find it's not a bad looking story down through south, and the wet weather and the cloud clearing away towards north, even behind some fine spells as we head through the afternoon. A cold night coming up for you though. We'll meet that cloud and wetter weather through Canterbury and Westland. It should weaken away as we head through the morning time, and the afternoon leaves more fine spells as we head in towards at the end of the day as well. A bit more cloud around that western facing coast of the North Island, but I think most of us are in for a dry day and some fine weather as we head towards the afternoon. Another cold start to the day for places like Taupo, and I think even out towards parts of Hawke's Bay. A bit of a cool start first thing. Areas of cloud, but generally fine, dry and sunny on this eastern side of the North Island. There is more cloud to start the day from Northland down towards Waikato. We might find an odd shower in amongst the thickest of the cloud, but for most of us, again, it's a dry day, and the afternoon brings some brighter spells.
Well, the death toll continues to mount from the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Case numbers vary, but the Centre for Disease Control and Prevention reports 635 confirmed cases and 127 deaths. Joining us now live from the DRC is MSF Medical Coordinator in the DRC, Dr. Jean Gilbert Ndong. Jean, thanks so much for being with us. Well, how would you describe the situation on the ground in the DRC currently?
Okay, thank you for inviting me. So the situation is, we can say, difficult at the moment because the last situation report is talking about 635 confirmed cases and around 127 confirmed deaths. And what is really, really difficult actually is that the number of health zones is really growing on a daily basis. So at the beginning of the epidemic, we had like 3 health zones, and today we have 28 health zones in epidemic. So it's a very, very difficult situation, and the team are trying to handle the situation, but it's not yet on control. That's what we have to say.
Yeah, and so you're the medical coordinator, Jean. I mean, are you getting the support you need?
So yes, actually we are giving the support, but we have to be honest and we have to be transparent. So there are a lot of challenges on the field, and one of the main challenge is the fact that the laboratory capacities are not enough. So the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo is trying to scale up. But we are not there yet. We still have a long way to go, especially in terms of the decentralization of the laboratory testing capacities. And we also have a big problem with the capacity of tracing the patient. So there are a lot of patients in the community, and we are not able to confirm the cases, and we are not really able to identify all the suspected cases in the community and to follow them.
Okay, can you just reiterate? Sorry, so getting to the people in the community in far-flung areas, is that quite a challenge in terms of getting to them, confirming cases and treating them?
Yes, it is. It is because, as I told before, there is a huge number of health zones affected. And as you know, Congo is a big country, and actually we have three provinces concerned by this epidemic. So we really have to have more human resources, more material to be able to go on the field and to give the needed care close to the patient. So there have been some improvement, but we still need to do more than what we have been doing so far in terms of mobilizing human resources, in terms of mobilizing medical care.
So, Jean, what is your analysis of the situation right now? I mean, is it under control or at least contained, or are we not there yet?
Definitely, the epidemic is not on control. And we cannot have the full pictures actually. And this is why we are talking about the laboratory capacity, because if you can be able to test the patient, we'll be able to have more or less the full picture of the epidemic, and we are not there yet. But we still, there is a hope, because today we are talking about 30 patients who have been declared totally free of Ebola. So there is a hope, but we still have a lot of work to do to make sure that every patient is confirmed cases and that we are able to make sure that around this patient, the epidemic is not going to spread.
And look, it's wonderful to have you on the show this morning. And obviously, you know, for New Zealanders, many, you know, won't understand what Ebola is and how it can be caught. Can you just break that down for us, John?
So Ebola is an hemorrhagic fever disease. So the signs and symptoms are like fever, body pain, and with time we are going to develop, the patient is going to develop hemorrhagic sign. And the patient will die because of these hemorrhagic signs. So at the beginning, we cannot say that Ebola is different from malaria, for example, but the fact that there is hemorrhagic sign, then we can suspect Ebola. And we need to confirm the case. And this is why the laboratory capacities are really, really important.
Okay, Jean, just finally, what are the chances of it spreading further afield? And it looks like we've just, unfortunately, lost Jean Gilbert, but that was MSF Medical Director in the DRC, Dr. Jean Gilbert Ndong. Well, back home now, and time to look behind the headlines with Herald Editor-at-Large Shane Curry. Hosking has rubbed up John Campbell the wrong way at the Radio Awards, so what happened?
He sure has. Morning, Michael. Nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, mate.
Yes, I'm always fascinated by the relationship between our big broadcasting kind of powerhouses, people like Paul Henry, Paul Holmes when he was alive, Mike Hosking these days, and John Campbell, two of our biggest names in broadcasting, of course, alongside Michael Mora. Ryan Bridge, people like that. But there you go. Butter him up. But no, we had the Radio Awards last week, and Mike Hosking wasn't present in the room. He delivered his victory or acceptance speech from 18,000 kilometres away in Edinburgh in a pre-arranged, pre-recorded video. And in that, it was typical, I guess, what you would call Hosking droll humour, slightly sarcastic, made a passing comment, a throwaway line that he hoped that the awards were proceeding well, that they were culturally appropriate, because there's nothing, he said, I like more than culturally appropriate awards. And of course, that riled up some of the room, others laughed, but it did particularly, according to my sources, rile up John Campbell, who in exiting the auditorium was talking to people about what he believed it to be a disgrace. We've talked to Radio New Zealand this morning about that. Of course, John's now co-host of Morning Report.
Well, John's entitled to his views,
absolutely,
though, isn't he? I mean, these sort of awards, anyone can get up on stage and someone will mutter something.
That's right, and I've said in the column this morning, it's nothing like what we saw with Chris Rock and Will Smith at the Oscars or anything like that, but it is just a nice, it's an interesting kind of, I guess, position for both. It kind of does play to the ideological positions, I guess, of both. And RNZ has given a lovely response in the column this morning.
I read that.
Yeah, they've skirted around
diplomatic, wasn't
slightly,
it?
but did say, they love the ceremony and the mihi and the karakia. So, yeah, very nice.
Yeah, nice. Now, Jason Momoa has left Hell Divers. Do we know why?
Yeah, this report emerged in Deadline, the Hollywood film publication earlier this week. Jason Momoa, of course, big fan of New Zealand. He's here constantly. In fact, one of our colleagues was on the same flight as him home from the US just this week, so we know he's in the country at the moment. He's invested out west in the studio at HNOW. And of course, he's involved in a lot of big film projects. One of them is the one you've just mentioned, the Sony big picture piece called Hell Divers. And it's based off the Sony PlayStation game. It was due to start production in Auckland in August, but Momoa's pulled out for reasons yet to be explained. He does have a lot on his plate at the moment with about 3 or 4 other big movies that are about to be released. So it may be that things were just getting crunched up a bit.
Is that relatively unusual that you would have someone who, forces the production team to sort of publicly acknowledge that, hey, actually, we don't have a lead role anymore?
Yeah, well, because they're so close to production, and they were at CinemaCon in April in the States, where the director Jason Lin actually was talking up Jason Momoa's presence in the movie very strongly. And saying there's no one better, no one else that we'd want other than Jason. And of course, 2 or 3 months later, they're now scrambling to find a new kind of headline star for the movie. It is still on track, Sony says, and while they're still looking for an lead actor, it is due to be released into cinemas end of next year.
Yeah, well, of course, you can always put your hand up for that, couldn't you? Now, HBO Max is launching here next week. So how is that going to differ from all the other streaming services we can choose from?
Yeah, really great question. New Zealand consumers have never had a greater choice, in terms of both pay and free streaming services that are now available in HBO Max. It is one of the world's biggest and best known. It's, responsible for some huge shows, things like Succession, Euphoria, in the past, Sopranos, and of course The Pit and White Lotus are 2 of their more recent shows. But they come into New Zealand directly from next Tuesday, Michael. They've previously been attached with Sky TV's Neon channel, so they break away from that as of Tuesday and stand alone. And, they've got an introductory offer of $10.99 per month, $10.99 per month, so that's pretty competitive compared to some of the others. But it does mean New Zealanders now have a choice of about 7 or 8 streaming services to pay for. And as HBO Max have said this morning, they realise Kiwis are very savvy when it comes to their choices. They know that they have to produce a consistent slate of great shows, but otherwise I do think New Zealand viewers are quite strategic. They might pick up a subscription for 2 or 3 months, binge watch a series, and then move to another channel. On average, Michael, most of us have about 2 to 2.5 streaming subscriptions.
Yeah, what do we like, do you know? Are we sort of staple sort of Netflix, Apple TV sort of thing?
Netflix is huge. In the sporting space, Sky Sport Now is increasingly growing alongside its linear programming, and of course TVNZ Plus enters the streaming market, paid TV streaming market itself today with the Football World Cup rights. So really interesting times in terms of just who has each of the rights and who can attract the biggest number of eyeballs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you as always for your analysis this morning. That is, of course, Shane Curry, the Herald's editor-at-large. It is time for a quick break. 22 minutes after 8. We'll be back soon.
Stop paying the waiting tax. The money you could miss out on by delaying the start of your investment journey. Up your tempo with Tempo, the guided investment app that helps you get started. Don't delay because you don't think you have enough time, money, or know-how. All you need is a goal, and our guidance will help with the rest. You can do it. We can help. Here's how. Download Tempo now.
For 150 years, public trust has helped generations of New Zealanders with their wills. Make yours today and ensure the things that matter go to the people that matter.
Here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference. But 2 degrees has free Aussie business roaming. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost centre reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
have what she's having.
Winning New World Emerge has brought me into the Foodstuffs family.
Winning Emerge has really transformed our business.
New World Emerge is a competition for small and emerging suppliers to give them an opportunity to have their products ranged in New World stores across the country.
Such huge amounts of support from New World. So we're in a distribution centre. We now have a 3PL, third-party logistics.
Whenever I need access to something, all I've got to do is reach out and ask.
Do you want a warm, healthy home? Insulate your walls with Insulmax. The easy, cost-effective way to insulate your walls, usually in just one day. Wall insulation without renovation for older Kiwi homes. Fully certified for New Zealand conditions. Join the thousands of Kiwis enjoying a warm, dry, energy-efficient home with Insulmax retrofit wall insulation. Visit nzherald.co.nz to book your free home assessment.
With the goodness of grains, Molenbeek. Keep me going on!
I want my Molenbeek!
Oh, it's a proper Lamington.
It only costs a few dollars, but it all adds up.
What do you mean?
Well, every little donation we make contributes to something bigger.
How bigger? Really bigger. Still require a bit more information here. Together, we are powerful.
Come on, Jeff.
Well,
Oh, look. Together, we make the chopper. Donate now to the Westpac Chopper Appeal.
25 past 8, I'm Michael Morrow. It is time now for our daily panel with Maya Wilson, former Silver Fern and MyFM host, and Dileepa Fonseca, senior business desk reporter. Thank you very much, guys, for being with us. Dileepa, just first up, we've done a series of stories this week at the Herald focusing on hospital specialists and childhood poverty. Do you think we as a country are failing children?
Well, the numbers show it, right? And the examples show it. Absolutely. There's a portion that is, we seem to have made no progress on this problem of, child health, these diseases that are preventable in other countries. And, there's a whole bunch of reasons around that. Some of it is the healthcare system, but to some extent the healthcare system is also the ambulance, like the literal ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. And, there's other problems contributing to it as well. Yeah,
Maya, where do you stand on this? I mean, is it, politics? There's all these competing policies. We come up to an election and, the government will go and invest money and say, hey, we're putting all this money into health, but it's not helping the children who are growing up in huge poverty.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's two parts to the story, right? You have the numbers that are saying that a portion of our community are struggling, RSV is massive, but then you also have a part like I personally grew up very lucky to be privileged and not be around environments or households that maybe were doing it tough. Like you said in the series, there's so many different factors that are showing up to not be successful, help our kids get out of these situations.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, one other point is, as you mentioned, RSV, it's a big one. It is going to lead to kids and babies being, put into resuscitation rooms this winter. There's an antibody drug that's available. It's been available for 2 years in Australia. Why is it that we're so slow in New Zealand? Does that frustrate you personally, that we seem, in my opinion, to always be behind the 8 ball on these things?
Yeah, and actually I thought the series of interviews you did a little bit earlier on in the show was actually kind of good on that point, because, part of the issue, I think, is, even if they're approved, they're not necessarily funded, right? So, even if they're approved as being safe, which is one part of the process, they've also got to be funded by Pharmac for it to be accessible by some of these, families. And that's part of this bigger debate about Pharmac that we've been having, because essentially, in order to, the big advances in healthcare, a lot of it has been in pharmaceuticals in recent years. The cost of these could go up exponentially. So the only way we can have negotiating power is to have a fixed medicines budget, have a kind of priority list where it's secret. The evidence of how much need is being unmet is in the options for investment list that Pharmac has, which is all the medicines that, if they had enough money, they would fund. And if they had the right terms, they would fund. And there's 139 of those, I think, on that list in March. and that that drug you mentioned, that'll be just one of them probably.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Respiratory Foundation this morning, Maya, told me that it doesn't think Pharmac's fit for purpose. I mean, obviously there is a budget, right? It's got a certain amount of coin to play with, and that's that. But should we as a country be prioritising more towards that agency?
Well, I feel like we could potentially be putting more pressure on Pharmac and being like, this is a massive issue within our communities. Why is it not being fixed? And like you said, there's many options, but you can't tell me there isn't some place in a budget to be able to deal with this.
Okay, just to the Warriors coach, Andrew Webster, calling for stronger action against AI-generated images after a Facebook post falsely claimed his wife, Emma, was dead. I mean, this is terrible, but it's happening all the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, something less serious than that, but I remember, somebody came up to me, a few months ago, had a conversation with me, and they made a reference to Denzel Washington being dead, and I was like, what? And they had just seen a video and just gone all these months, convinced that was the case. And it's only getting worse. You've got like people's news sources have turned into, to social media, online sources, and those can now be faked more easily. And I think in some ways, we are going to have a conversation with this. We haven't been particularly successful at moderating the social media companies to date with a whole lot of, lower order, easier to regulate issues. So I'm not quite sure how we're going to do it with this new problem. I wonder if part of the solution may be actually holding some of the posters and reposters, if they're domestically responsible for fake information, even if it's a small fine or some sort of liability that's attached to that. That could be one option. We always had a legal principle that if you yell fire in a crowded theatre, that should be illegal because you're causing unnecessary panic. Perhaps there's some cases for widening that or reinterpreting that for the 21st century, perhaps.
Absolutely, because Maya, this type of thing can be pretty damaging, right? I mean, do you know anyone who's fallen for an AI-generated image or information?
Yeah, I've definitely been. I've been used as an example actually on one of the netball ones myself.
Really?
Consistently in the last 2 weeks, and I guess it's I haven't been to this extent where someone has been claimed dead, but the fact that they're using my own personal images of myself and my family, chucking them in and making them cry, or it's been quite frustrating as someone on the other hand of that. And at the same time, I don't think the people that this information is targeted to are experienced or educated enough to see that it's AI, but to me blankly maybe it's my age and youth. It's quite evident that if they're calling me a he, I'm not a man and I don't look like a man, then this is fake news. So part of me needs to be a bit more education towards our people realising this is actually fake.
And how did that affect you personally, Maya?
I think,
rubbish.
For me, it was Well, I just had to ignore it. At the end of the day, I'm still a professional netballer, and scrutiny and all the types like this is a part of the job, and it's about being able to compartmentalise what's happening online, ignoring it, and being able to stick to what my job actually is.
Totally. Hey, just really quickly, guys. New research finds 38% of Kiwis walk out of shops over bad music. Have you ever done it?
I haven't, but I do agree. I think in that same survey they had something like over 40% of people, or those people who kind of walk it out that loud, the volume was the issue. And I do think in some of the places where it's been noticeable, it's the volume that's the issue, not necessarily the music.
Yeah, fair enough. Maya, do you get frustrated with rubbish music? I, for one, supermarkets drive me mental sometimes, right?
Oh, yeah, not too bad. It's actually elevators that drive me the most annoying. Or if you're like calling a business and you're left on hold.
Oh, the waiting music.
The waiting music, that's where I want to press cancel, but not too much in shops.
Yeah, fair enough. Hey guys, thanks so much for coming in and joining us this morning on Ryan Bridge today. That is, of course, Maya Wilson, former Silver Fern and My FM host, and Alipa Fonseca, Senior Business Desk reporter. Well, it is 8:30. Let's go straight to the news.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Uncertainty continues in Iran this morning. US President Donald Trump says discussions and final points have been approved by all parties. He's told Fox News Iran is in submission. Trump says Iran has no navy, air force or anti-aircraft defences, and the US is flying over the country without its knowledge. The Infrastructure Commission's warning high power prices, fuelled by declining levels of gas, are discouraging investment in energy infrastructure. Its latest report calls for planning for a larger and more electricity-dependent economy in the future. It estimates $2 to $5 billion a year will need to be spent on electricity over the next 30 years. The Commission says new generation and storage is needed to offset declining gas. It says the cost to build electricity generation in New Zealand is competitive with the rest of the world. Support from some mayors for ACT's pledge to expand rural policing. At Field Days in Hamilton, ACT has announced a promise to fund an extra 100,000 patrol hours in rural areas. It also wants stiffer penalties on armed poachers and livestock thefts, and to expand 111 texts for farmers with patchy mobile coverage. Manawatu District Mayor Michael Ford says regional officers are too often called to Palmerston North. He says criminals typically know they have about a 20-minute head start. A former Olympian turned coach and another male employee at an Auckland hockey club have been accused of misconduct involving young women. The Herald reports the Olympian resigned from North Harbour Hockey Association following an investigation into inappropriate relationships with female players. He denies the allegations. The other staff member has been charged with 3 counts of indecent assault, 2 of which allegedly involve a girl aged between 12 and 16. His case is currently before the Auckland District Court. There's no suggestion the 2 men's alleged conduct is linked. Tertiary enrolments are forecast to peak next year before gradually declining the rest of the decade. New Ministry of Education projections say full-time enrolments will rise to about 214,000 in 2027 before easing to 207,000 by 2030. The minister says it's driven by unemployment rates, with Treasury forecasting joblessness to reach a high next year before falling. The report also forecasts enrolments will remain below their 2021 peak, while postgraduate study continues to grow.
Herald Now Sport.
The Football World Cup is now underway. Today's games include South Africa facing tournament co-hosts Mexico and South Korea against the Czech Republic. Black Caps opener Devon Conway has briefly returned home to New Zealand for the birth of his second child. He's expected back for the second test starting Wednesday. The South Sydney Rabbitohs have torched the defending champion Broncos 48-6 to open round 15 of the NRL. It's a 6th straight defeat for Brisbane.
Herald Now weather.
Morena, while high pressure sits across the top of the country. Across the South Island, this up front is bringing some wetter and cloudier weather across the middle parts of the South Island. That weakens away as it moves northwards, and behind it, some more clear, cold air. We'll find it's not a bad looking story down through Southland. The wet weather and the cloud clearing away towards north, even behind some fine spells as we head through the afternoon. A cold night coming up for you though. We'll meet that cloud and wetter weather through Canterbury and Westland. It should weaken away as we head through the morning time, and the afternoon leaves more fine spells as we head in towards at the end of the day as well. A bit more cloud around that western facing coast of the North Island, but I think most of us are in for a dry day and some fine weather as we head towards the afternoon. Another cold start to the day for places like Taupo, and I think even out towards parts of Hawke's Bay. A bit of a cool start first thing. Areas of cloud, but generally fine, dry and sunny on this eastern side of the North Island. There is more cloud to start the day from Northland down towards Waikato. We might find an odd shower in amongst the thickest of the cloud, but for most of us, again, it's a dry day, and the afternoon brings some brighter spells.
Well, it's time now for an update on our Kids Can 2020 fundraiser. 20% of Kiwi children are living in households where food regularly runs out. That's 1 in 5 Kiwi kids who need our help right now. Kids Can 2020 appeal has a goal of raising $500,000. It's now over 419,000. So we're almost there, and you can donate to Kids Can 2020 appeal at www.20for20.org.nz. That's 20for20.org.nz. Well, a social media movement is calling on dads around the world to educate themselves on periods.
Welcome to Period of Ponytail.
The event teaches dads about topics we often assume are reserved for mums. It hopes to break down old stereotypes about fatherhood and conquer a difficult task, tying the perfect ponytail. Joe Robertson from Tricky Chats, parenting specialist, is with me now. Ponytails, plaits, that is a tricky one.
Yeah, are you finding it hard?
Well, look, I must admit, when I was first asked to plait my daughter's hair, I said, I don't know how to do plaits. And my wife said to me, watch YouTube and learn. And so I did.
Good. That's great.
Yeah.
And you just turned up to the occasion and you applied yourself and you did it. What's interesting is that I also get asked to do my boys' hair. So this is not just purely a female phenomenon. My kids come into me regularly and they'll say, what's this spiky bit? Can you deal with that?
Yeah, I've eventually got relatively pro at it, but it was a bit of a learning curve. And so what is this trend all about with encouraging dads to speak to their kids about periods?
Well, so it's bigger than that. What they're really wanting to encourage is connection with their daughters. One of the things that the Secret Life of Dads, this is the podcast and these are the hosts of that, and they run these events, which is amazing. One of the things that they talk about a lot is that modern dads are spending twice the amount of time with their kids than they were 50 years ago. Actually, it's up to 7 times. So reports suggest it's between double the amount of time to 7 times the amount of time dads were 50 years ago. So that's amazing. It's really encouraging. But with that comes a need to skill up, to learn some things. Mums still often carry the majority of the mental load, and so we want to take some of that off them and build attachment.
And so why is it so important that dads step into that area of parenting if mum's already doing it?
Yeah, I mean, fair question. Do we need to double up? I think the point is that you're a dad of girls. You're their primary model of masculinity. Of what it is to be a man and what to expect from future partners if that's the way that they're inclined. So you're it, like you're the template. And as a result, you really want to think about what you're modeling. Are you modeling like, oh, that's a woman's problem and it's got nothing to do with me? Or are you modeling empathy and kindness and, turning up to whatever your partner might be going through?
And so what's your advice to dads who might be a bit nervous or reluctant to talk about this sort of thing? Because there will be heaps, probably including myself, who are just a bit unsure about how I should enter into that discussion with my daughters.
I think the fear or the barrier is that you'll have to be an expert. You'll have to know everything there is to know, either about ponytails or periods, and that you'll have to have really great information and be ready to answer any questions she might have, and you totally don't need to. So you communicate that you care in really small micro moments. Like I remember my dad asking me before we went on holiday once, he's like, do you have everything you need for if you get your period? That was it. That was all he asked. He didn't need to go into some big lecture about how, he was aware of what I was going through, but he showed in that small moment that he understood that there might be extra challenges for me and he was kind of here for it. He would also ask questions when he was going to the supermarket, like, do you need anything for this month? Are you going to get your period soon? So those moments are so powerful as a dad, signaling to your daughter, I really care about you and what you're going through.
Absolutely, and that shift you mentioned before in terms of the time spent with children. So what's driving that massive shift? Because that is a massive shift in terms of dads are doing a lot more with kids, and it's not just mum.
Yeah, 2 things. One is that mums are often working now as well, so someone needs to be there, and so they're sharing the role a lot more. I think that's amazing. It's really, really healthy, but also I think there is an awareness that as dads you have a really critical role.
Absolutely, Joe. Wonderful to have you, and as always, have a wonderful weekend. That, of course, is Joe Robertson, Tricky Chats parenting specialist. Well, it is 20 to 8, time for a quick break. 20 to 9, sorry, time for a quick break. We'll be back soon.
So it was pitch black, middle of the night. Where are we going? We saw this tree. It was the tallest tree ever. And then we walked and walked. Then we saw a cow. Well, Mom did.
That's quite an adventure, buddy.
Yeah, it kind of was. What do you want to do now?
One Roof Property. Love where you live.
Sleeping rough is a reality for far too many Kiwis this winter. We're raising money through the annual Big Sleep Out to help change that. Donations support Merge Cafe, a welcoming space on K Road serving warm, nourishing kai, and real support to help people find safety, connection, and a place to call home. Donate today to the Big Sleep Out because every donation counts.
In 1985, my grandfather set out to make the world a better tea. That's why we grow our own, unlike other tea companies. Then pick the best leaves by hand, not machine, and pack it right here in Sri Lanka. But it's not just the taste that makes our tea better. 15% of our profit goes to humanity and to the elephants. As my grandfather said,
Do try it.
Guys, make way for the designated driver.
Hey there team, thank you for once again voting GJ Gardner Homes as New Zealand's most trusted home builder. Now's a great time to build, and GJs are your best choice for certainty, peace of mind, and unmatched performance.
Welcome back to Ryan Bridge today. It is time to talk business thanks to our partners Forsyth Bar, and we've got some breaking news this morning about ANZ. We've got host of Herald Now Business, Garth Bray, who's at the desk live for us again. So what has happened?
Fresh in on the NZX, obviously, notifying anything substantial there. ANZ's Group Chief Executive and CEO Antonia Watson's stepping down. She's retiring at the end of their financial year in September. She's been, I think, at the bank since 2019, so right through that sort of COVID period, and rather she was in CEO since that period. She was worked at the bank for about 10 years before that, and she's been replaced by Ben Callagher, who's currently the Chief Risk Officer. He similarly has been at the bank for about 10 years and is now moving into the CEO role. I mean, this is our biggest retail bank, 30% of the market, about 31% of the deposits, about 29% of the loans. So whoever's running this one has got a lot on their plate.
Okay, and so exactly why has Antonia decided to leave at this point in time?
Good
What
question,
is the quotable information from ANZ?
She has been retiring at the end of their financial year and has been in there in that time. It's a very kind of a vanilla statement at this point. I mean, they've had a change of leadership in Australia at the head office. Nuno Matos, who came in there and has been running a ruler right through the place and making quite a lot of changes. But from what I'd heard, the New Zealand operation was sort of seen as broadly quite successful. I think at their half year they posted about a $3.5 billion profit. So it might just be its time.
And had you heard anything in the lead up to this, or was it just kind of...
I think they were hoping maybe most people were watching, I don't know, football or paying attention to what's happening in the golf, but this one sort of jumped out today. I think it's an interesting one. I mean, a change of leadership can quite often affect things. In the US markets, Adobe just posted results. They did well, but they announced the CFO is leaving, and that's part of that might be part of the reason that their share prices tanked just a little bit. I mean, we can take a sort of a broader look at some of those numbers if you like.
Yeah, let's have a look at those markets.
Sure. The Dow, S&P 500 and NASDAQ have all finished up quite substantially, all in the green there. I think, 1.86 on the Dow Jones, 50,848, S&P 7,300, nearly 7,400. All of this on that news that Donald Trump had basically said we are very close to a deal. I think transaction finalised was how he Truth Socialed or tweeted it, saying that there's basically...
Except it's not finalised.
Well, but the language too, right? This is like a business deal, and this is the deal supposedly to ink some kind of a memorandum of understanding with Iran about reopening the Strait of Hormuz and moving to formal discussions about the nuclear deal and possibly freeing up some of the sanctioned cash that's been sitting there for quite some time. So that has really seen oil prices just gone on an absolute rip there. I think Brent crude's down 89.11 the last time I looked, a US a barrel for the front month future. That's back at the lowest point it kind of traded today, and it's really sort of bending that forward curve to the point where you're sort of seeing a lot of optimism that this actually is going to happen. And that's been really the pattern of the day. Anytime there's bad news, people are kind of discounting it. Anytime there's good news, the market seems to be buying it and buying into it pretty hard.
Absolutely. Well, we just hope that that optimism is in fact real. Garth Bray, thank you very much for coming in as always, and especially that breaking news, bringing that to us live there. That of course is Herald Now business host Garth Bray, and we talk business every day with our partners Forsyth Bar. Well, we are T-minus 18 hours until SpaceX launches on the NASDAQ. Shares will be up for grabs at 135 USD. And apologies, we have already covered that story. I've got something in the auto queue which isn't supposed to be there. We're going to go straight to a break. Back soon.
It only costs a few dollars, but it all adds up.
What do you mean?
Well, every little donation we make contributes to something bigger.
How bigger? Really bigger. Well,
Together, we make the chopper. Donate now to the Westpac Chopper Appeal.
Do you want a warm, healthy home? Insulate your walls with Insulmax. The easy, cost-effective way to insulate your walls, usually in just one day. Wall insulation without renovation for older Kiwi homes. Fully certified for New Zealand conditions. Join the thousands of Kiwis enjoying a warm, dry, energy-efficient home with Insulmax retrofit wall insulation. Visit nzherald.co.nz to book your free home assessment.
For 150 years, public trust has helped generations of New Zealanders with their wills. Make yours today and ensure the things that matter go to the people that matter.
With the goodness of grains, Molenbeek. Keep me going longer!
I want my Molenbeek!
Winning New World Emerge has brought me into the Foodstuffs family.
Winning Emerge has really transformed our business.
New World Emerge is a competition for small and emerging suppliers to give them an opportunity to have their products ranged in New World stores across the country.
Such huge amounts of support from New World. So we're in the distribution centre, we now have a 3PL, third-party logistics.
Whenever I need access to something, all I've got to do is reach out and ask.
Hey there team, thank you for once again voting GJ Gardner Homes as New Zealand's most trusted home builder. Now's a great time to build, and GJs are your best choice for certainty, peace of mind and unmatched performance.
We just switched to 2 Degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference. But 2 Degrees has free Aussie business roaming. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
Stop paying the waiting tax. The money you could miss out on by delaying the start of your investment journey. Up your tempo with Tempo, the guided investment app that helps you get started. Don't delay because you don't think you have enough time, money, or know-how. All you need is a goal, and our guidance will help with the rest. You can do it. We can help. Here's how. Download Tempo now.
Welcome back. Well, in breaking news this morning, Donald Trump has cancelled renewed strikes on Iran, with the US president suggesting a deal to end the war in the Middle East could be done as soon as this weekend. Trump told reporters that Iran's supreme leader has approved the deal, which he says includes a conceptual agreement that they will never have a nuclear weapon.
That the Strait will officially open as soon as we sign, which could be soon, very soon, maybe over the weekend, in Europe. I won't be able to be there, but JD will be there, Vice President, and some of the people. They will not only not have, they will not purchase, develop in any way, any shape, in any way, shape, or form a nuclear weapon. They will not have a nuclear weapon.
Iran, however, has not corroborated Trump's remarks. The Iranian regime has released a statement. It says Iranian officials have not yet responded to Trump's claims. The statement from Tehran also says Trump has repeatedly made contradictory and inaccurate statements about peace negotiations. Meanwhile, Israel, who obviously started the war in partnership with the US, have confirmed they are not party to any agreement yet. The markets are reacting regardless, with Brent crude oil prices dropping more than 4% to around $88 a barrel. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 ended 1.8% higher and the NASDAQ was up 2.5%. Earlier, I was joined by US correspondent Dan Schnur, and with Trump saying the peace deal could be just around the corner, I asked him, what does he make of this latest announcement from the US president?
Like, the first thing I would caution everyone in this conversation is to remember that Trump has predicted that a peace deal is imminent in the US-Iran war more than 30 times over the last 4 months. So that doesn't mean that there will not be an agreement this time. It just means that Trump, over the months of the war, has learned that one of the best ways to dial down tensions, and not coincidentally, to re-encourage the stock market, is to make this kind of announcement. If it does lead to a peace deal, it'll be fascinating to find out what concessions he made in order to do so. If not, this may be one more in a series of temporary slowdowns to be followed by another acceleration in the days ahead.
Yeah, Dan, the point you make is really critical. Of course, Trump says a lot of things. Key to this is Iran's response. Have we heard anything out of Tehran confirming what Trump is saying?
We have not. And again, like every good person, I hope that this is a peace. But it's important to remember that one of the obstacles to the negotiations is that Iran's leaders are so spread out and so isolated. It normally has taken an immense amount of time to deliver messages to them and get their responses. To get such a fast response on this occasion suggests that this might be preliminary encouraging signs as opposed to something more seminal.
Yeah, but of course, you know, to what extent is this a strategy of Trump's? I mean, he's talking about massive airstrikes at one point and then dialing back the rhetoric. And as you've mentioned, there's been more than 30 occasions where he's essentially said, hey guys, we're really close. So, do we know which way we're going to go yet?
We don't. And two quick points. One, you've nailed it exactly right. First of all, Trump has learned that voicing encouraging messages like this do bring down oil prices and do encourage the stock market upward. Second thing to remember, though, is Trump knows that he has midterm elections coming up this November. And the longer the war continues, the worse that is for him and his Republican Party. He told Fox News last night that he thought Americans might not have the appetite for a long war. So while this could, in fact, be a tangible peace deal, it's just as probable that it's him attempting to reassure his voters to keep them in line heading into these midterms.
Well, finally today, if you've ever wanted a handbag made out of dinosaur, now's your chance. This bag is up for auction in Paris. Its makers say it's made from biocomposite material, which has come from traces of collagen found in a Tyrannosaurus Rex leg bone. The auction house described it as an object without precedent in the history of luxury. It's estimated it will go for between $500,000 and $1 million. Well, an Auckland e-scooter rider has narrowly escaped being hit on the head by a rubbish truck arm. The rider got a bit of a shock as he sped past the truck and its mechanical arm came down towards him. He ducked out of the way in the nick of time, but unfortunately lost his balance and fell off the scooter anyway. Unlucky. The man is luckily unharmed and managed to get back up and continue his journey. And that is it for today. We'll be back from 7 on Monday morning. I'm Michael Mora. For more news, go to nzherald.co.nz. And a quick thank you to our partners, Forsyth Bar, Rembrandt, Max, GJ Gardner and Nordest. From the team at Ryan Bridge today, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.